that Google this week revealed some stats for the year. The #1 person whose name followed people Google searching who is in 2022 was Andrew Tate.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen someone rise so quickly online that it felt less like fame and more like a glitch in the system? Someone who went from unknown to everywhere in a matter of months. Not because he bought ads or staged a scandal, but because the entire internet pushed his face into your feed whether you wanted it or not. That was Andrew Tate. For a period of time, he wasn't just a man, he was a presence. He dominated timelines, arguments, classrooms, and political debates. People didn't ask, "Who is Andrew Tate?" They asked, "How did this happen so fast?" And behind that meteoric rise was a story decades in the making. Long before the Bugatti, the controversies, and the global spotlight, Andrew Tate grew up in circumstances that shaped everything he would later say. His father, Andrew Tate, was a chess master, one of the most unpredictable American players of his era. He was respected, admired, and undeniably brilliant, but brilliance rarely guarantees stability. Emery traveled constantly, won games, and gained recognition, yet struggled financially. Chess fame didn't pay the bills. After the marriage fell apart, Tate's mother moved the children to Luton, a working-class town where economic hardship was normal and opportunities felt limited. For Tate, those years formed 3 beliefs. Poverty limits your agency, power earns respect, and no one will rescue you. Kickboxing became his outlet, a way to feel in control of his life. He trained obsessively not because he dreamed of fame but because he refused to feel powerless again. Andrew Tate became a 4-time world kickboxing champion. On paper it sounds like success, titles, belts, and respect. But kickboxing wasn't like mainstream sports. The pay was low, sponsorships were rare, and even world champions often worked side jobs to survive. Tate has said repeatedly that even at the top of his sport, he struggled financially. To him, it felt like another rigged system where effort didn't equal reward. This was a turning point in his philosophy. He concluded that the world rewards leverage, not labor, and that influence matters more than honesty or hard work. That realization pushed him to walk away from the ring and search for financial control, something he believed couldn't be taken from him. Leaving professional fighting didn't give Tate financial freedom. It only gave him time to think about what kind of life he wanted to build. He knew he didn't want stability that depended on a coach, a promoter, or the outcome of a fight. He wanted something with no ceiling. Something where the results came directly from his decisions, not from judges or scorecards. That search led him to start a webcam studio with his brother, Tristan. It wasn't a traditional business, and it didn't carry the respect that came with professional sports. But it was profitable. Tate has described that period as his first real lesson in how money moves online. People have debated whether the webcam business was ethical or not. Tate has openly said parts of it existed in a gray area, and critics argue that it exploited workers. Supporters say he simply built a system that already existed and made it more efficient. But regardless of the moral debate, the business made money quickly, far more than kickboxing ever had. The webcam studio was the foundation for almost every business move he made later. It showed him that if he controlled attention, he controlled income. And attention was something he knew he could get. With more financial breathing room, Tate began exploring other ventures: casinos, digital products, online communities, real estate, and crypto. Some of these did well, some didn't, but all of them reinforced one belief: he could build a life that didn't rely on anyone else's approval. Still, none of these ventures prepared him for the moment when social media would change everything. Tate had been posting online for years, long before he became a global topic. Most of his early content didn't go viral. He talked about discipline, masculinity, building confidence, money, and personal responsibility. These themes weren't new, but they resonated with a certain audience. especially young men who felt disconnected, frustrated, or unsure about their future. By the early 2020s, a cultural shift was already happening. Institutions that once held public trust were losing influence. Traditional schooling felt outdated for many. Wages weren't matching inflation. Social media had created a generation that was connected but felt isolated. And many young men felt their concerns weren't being taken seriously. Into that environment walked Andrew Tate, direct, blunt, unapologetic, and confident. He didn't soften his opinions to be politically correct. He didn't package his ideas in soft language. He presented everything in a way that felt like a counter-narrative to mainstream messaging. That's why his early content resonated long before he went viral. People listened not because he was universally right, but because he was saying something in a tone they didn't hear anywhere else. Then something happened that neither he nor the platforms expected. Short-form content exploded. TikTok, Reels, and YouTube Shorts changed the entire landscape of online communication. Clips didn't need context. They didn't need a full video. Even a 7-second line could spread faster than a full monologue. Students in his online programs began reposting his clips everywhere, often without coordination. Some clips were motivational, and some were intentionally edited to seem more extreme. Algorithms don't evaluate character. They evaluate engagement. And Tate's clips were generating more engagement than almost any creator at the time. This was the turning point. Tate didn't just go viral. He became a topic of conversation everywhere. But as his influence grew, so did the pressure from institutions watching the situation unfold. The bigger Tate became, the more attention he attracted from media outlets, schools, companies, and eventually governments. His name began appearing in news segments, not because he was promoting a business, but because of the debates happening around him. Schools reported issues with students repeating Tate's phrases. Parents expressed concern. Companies faced questions about hosting his content. These cultural reactions created pressure to respond. And once pressure starts, institutions rarely stay neutral. By mid-2022, multiple platforms conducted internal reviews of his content. They assessed whether it violated guidelines related to safety, hate speech, or incitement. Different organizations reached different conclusions, but they reached them around the same time. One platform banning him made others reconsider their stance. The results were rapid. Tate lost his accounts on nearly every major platform: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Payment processors restricted him. Ride apps and certain services cut ties. To supporters, this looked coordinated. To critics, it looked like overdue moderation. To most observers, it was a level of deplatforming rarely seen for a single individual. Whether the decision was coordinated or coincidental will always be debated. Publicly, companies said they acted for safety and policy reasons. Privately, leaked reports suggested they were responding to reputational pressure and media attention. But one thing became clear: removing Tate's accounts did not reduce his influence. It intensified it. And his supporters saw the ban as validation of the very system he had been warning about. But the real shift in his story came months later, when events in Romania changed everything again. In December 2022, Romanian authorities arrived at Andrew Tate's residence with allegations that would dominate headlines worldwide. The charges involved human trafficking, organized crime, and later an accusation of rape. Tate and his brother Tristan were detained under Romania's preventive detention laws, which allow suspects to be held while an investigation is still ongoing. This process can last months and in some cases more than a year.
Police in Romania have raided the home of the British-American social media influencer Andrew Tate and announced he faces several new charges. The Special Prosecution Service said police searched Tate's 4 properties in the capital Bucharest. The new charges include sex with and trafficking in underaged persons. They also include money laundering and attempting to influence witnesses.
2 women associated with the case later appeared in Romanian media, publicly stating they did not consider themselves victims and disputed how the allegations were being portrayed. Prosecutors responded by arguing that those statements were influenced and should not be taken at face value. One thing that made the case more confusing is the structure of Romania's legal system. Unlike the United States or the UK, Romanian prosecutors can hold suspects for extended periods based on reasonable suspicion, rather than full charges. Decisions happen behind closed doors, and evidence isn't immediately available to the public. As months passed, the investigation moved slowly. Tate was transferred from custody to house arrest.
Social media personality Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan have gone up a notch. Romanian authorities have amended the charge against them to human trafficking in continued form, a more serious offence than separate counts. The brothers are under house arrest pending a criminal investigation for suspected human trafficking, rape and forming a criminal gang.
By the time official charges were filed in 2023, the public had already formed its own conclusions, and those conclusions were deeply divided. The legal system moved at its own pace, but social media didn't wait. Every update became another headline. Today the case remains ongoing. Tate continues to deny the allegations. Romanian prosecutors continue to prepare evidence for trial. Whether Tate is ultimately convicted or cleared is something only the courts can determine. But the impact on his public image has already happened. The case didn't silence him, it made him an even larger symbol. And symbols rarely fade quietly. After leaving house arrest, Andrew Tate returned to the internet to a very different position than before. He wasn't just reacting to clips or running businesses online anymore. He began appearing in interviews again. BBC questioned him directly. Piers Morgan challenged his claims. Patrick Bet-David gave him time to explain his side in detail. Tucker Carlson framed his situation as an example of government overreach. Each appearance reached a different audience, and each audience came away with a different conclusion. Some saw Tate as someone being unfairly targeted. Others saw him as someone finally being held accountable. Many simply saw a public figure trying to regain control of his image. Then, another storyline started circulating online, a possible fight involving social media personality Chase Damour. Damour wasn't known as a professional fighter, which immediately made the matchup feel unusual. There were no clear details, no confirmed date, and no solid explanation for how the idea even started. Some believed it was real. Some believed it was promotional. Others didn't believe it would happen at all. What stood out wasn't the fight itself, but the timing. While legal questions, media appearances, and public debate were still unfolding, this new topic pulled attention in a completely different direction. And that's where Tate's story sits now, split across multiple lanes at once. Legal processes, media narratives, public opinion, and online speculation all running in parallel. There's no clear ending yet. For now, Andrew Tate remains what he has become over time, not just a person but a moving story the internet keeps trying to define in real time.